The way that I tend to think about information is that information is the connected relationships and integration of multiple data points so that those data points create, on a larger scale as a whole, an emergent phenomenon. Now, you can think about a three-dimensional graph that is directed similar to how you would represent a network for Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi networks adapt and they connect in a certain way. They're always doing what our brains do, which is synaptic pruning, only they're doing it with waves of light or signals. So that's the way that I think about 5G networks and everything, but like when you hook up your internet. Now, if you think about this concept of information, in black holes, which black holes are extremely hot on the event horizon, and there's a lot of turmoil. So one of the things that was questionable is whether black holes have entropy. Now, we know that they do due to the fact that Hawking radiation exists. So what's interesting about black holes is that they get hot enough and have enough strength to the forces inside and their pull from that even escapes light. Now, black holes therefore have an immense amount of turmoil and heat that is inside of them at the singularity. Now, if you think about matter as being equivalent to information, particles are actually the data points on these networks or these directed graphs. They're adaptive. Now, the nodes themselves are data. The relationships between the nodes or the edges that connect them, or the paths, those create integration such that information can exist. And information is just those relationships leading to a context in the connection between different particulates of data or information. So when I think about information theory in terms of the disintegration of information in a black hole, one of the things I think about is that those data points or those particulates are actually still information in that they themselves are self-contained information in that that's what data is. But one of the things that I like to think about is that if information is destroyed but data is not, due to the thermodynamics of black hole interactions with particulate matter in the universe, one of the ways that I like to think about this is that when information is destroyed, or those relationships between the nodes, what's actually happening is the integration of data points such that this type of information is created. That those integrations or connections or relationships between the nodes, they disappear or are torn apart by the extreme forces of a black hole. And so, going a step further, you could essentially say that data that is losing these relationships essentially has a disintegration, not only physically of itself, but of logic. And that's the way that I think about logic, especially deductive logic and mathematical logic, where logic is possible by the very explanation of the idea that information is connected or integrated. And when you disintegrate that, something that we don't oftentimes think about in philosophy beyond our own mind or beyond an idea, is that logic itself could be disintegrated. So one of the ways that I was thinking about this is that you could avoid certain paradoxes caused by gravitational forces if you wanted to leave one universe for another. And this is part of how I think about the idea of sentience and teleportation, is that you could be, if you could disintegrate the relationships between the nodes in the network that is a person or their mind, you could essentially send that information to another universe in transfer or in lieu of other information coming back at the exact same time in a coordinated synchronization. So if you wanted to leave the cosmos and enter another cosmos in the multiverse, this parallel to ours, such that you don't actually create a collapse of the cosmos or the multiverse, this is a good way to do it. And one of the but the problem is putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, because those relationships would be very minute changes that would need to be readapted. So I know that it is kind of hard for me to get out to explain, but if that information is destroyed in a black hole, those relationships between the nodes, it's kind of interesting that extreme of heat could do that. And I don't know, this is kind of just raw thought, but yeah.